Managing thousands of dollars of your community's money is a massive responsibility. If your HOA relies on casual handshake deals or picking the first contractor you find online, those community funds can quickly disappear into substandard work or intense legal liability. To protect those assets, your board needs to abandon vague, unwritten requests for quotes. You need to transition to a legally compliant, highly structured request for proposal, or RFP. This process requires defining strict project boundaries upfront, establishing non-negotiable legal protections, and safely evaluating the incoming bids without falling for common pricing traps. By adopting a standardized RFP roadmap, your board fulfills its fiduciary duty to the community and ensures those funds are spent exactly as intended. Under Florida Statute 720.3055, if a contract payment exceeds 10% of your total annual budget, acquiring competitive bids is legally mandatory. However, you do not have to bid out specific professional services, like attorneys, accountants, or emergency repairs. When you do go out to bid, you cannot simply tell vendors to come look at the property and give you a quote. If you leave material choices up to them, you will get completely different proposals, creating an impossible apples to oranges comparison. Your RFP must define absolute boundary lines before the work begins. If you are paving roads, state exactly whether the vendor is responsible for trimming low-hanging tree branches or if the HOA handles that preparation. Next, set a standard submission deadline. Do not review bids as they roll in. Wait until the deadline passes and open them all together to prevent any price leaks or boardroom favoritism. By controlling the exact scope of work and the timeline up front, you force every vendor to bid on the exact same metrics, giving you accurate, comparable choices. Before looking at a vendor's pricing, your RFP needs to establish baseline legal prerequisites. These requirements filter out unprofessional contractors early in the process. First, demand their credentials. The RFP must require copies of active occupational licenses and a certificate of general liability insurance, typically a $1 million minimum, naming your HOA as an additional insured. Second, and most critically, demand proof of full Florida workers' compensation coverage. Without it, the HOA absorbs legal liability for any injuries on your property. Third, include a no handshake clause. Your final contract must contain a clause allowing the board to cancel the agreement with 30 or 60 days written notice, without cause. If a vendor refuses to agree to an out clause or provide insurance during the RFP stage, drop them. These non-negotiable clauses automatically disqualify high-risk vendors from your property. Step 1 in drafting the scope of work is setting strict technical boundaries. If you leave the details blank, contractors will use cheap, generic alternatives to make their bid look lower. For landscaping, typically an HOA's largest recurring expense, mandate a specific count of 38 to 42 mowing cycles per year. Set explicit height limitations for standard tree pruning and force the bidder to state the exact brand of fertilizer. Require mandatory monthly or quarterly irrigation wet checks. The checklist should detail testing specific zones, clearing clogged nozzles, and adjusting timers for seasonal water restrictions. For major painting projects, specify pressure washing PSI limits, mandate scraping of loose paint, and apply treatments to kill mold. Painting proposals must split coverage into a long-term manufacturer material warranty overlapping a shorter contractor workmanship warranty. For paving projects, dictate ADA compliance, separate patch repairs from overlays, and require an exact asphalt compaction depth of 1.5 to 2 inches. Demand the exact chemical mix design for your seal coating, specifying sand loading capacity and latex modifiers. Then, require a highly detailed, phased traffic routing plan with detours and mapped curing times, so residents aren't trapped. By hyper-specifying these chemical mixes, depths, and application layers, the board legally locks the vendor into delivering the exact level of quality your community expects. Once the deadline passes and you have your comparable bids, the evaluation phase begins. A major point of confusion for boards is the fear they are legally forced to choose the cheapest contractor. The law says otherwise. Your fiduciary duty means choosing the best overall value to protect the community's assets over the long term. If vendor A bids $15,000 with poor references, and vendor B bids $22,000 but includes a 10-year warranty, flawless references, and a dedicated project manager, the board is legally protected choosing vendor B. After you receive these bids, the state's transparency mandates kick in. All bids must be maintained as official records for at least 1 year. If your HOA has 100 or more parcels, active bids must be uploaded to a secure, password-protected member portal so homeowners can review them. You must also navigate this evaluation process with strict ethical compliance. Accepting any bribe, kickback, unapproved gift, or free personal service from a vendor triggers statutory felony charges and immediate removal from the board. If a board member or manager has a personal, familial, or financial connection to a bidding vendor, that relationship requires full written disclosure. To award the contract, the conflicted member must recuse themselves, and the rest of the board must pass it with a 2/3 majority vote. Transparent evaluation and strict ethical compliance shield the community's treasury from corruption, and they protect individual board members from personal criminal liability. You now have a comprehensive framework. Your board has replaced vague, dangerous quoting with a highly structured, legally defensible procurement workflow. Take these technical checklists and legal clauses, draft your next major project RFP, and issue it securely to your vendors with a hard deadline. Utilizing a standardized RFP provides the board with a framework to protect community funds and establish a clear, enforceable standard for every vendor on site.